A millionaire found an orphan girl hiding in his private jet before boarding for a trip and took her to his home. Days later, he began to cry when he discovered what she had done to his mute wife. The Mexican morning sun scorched the private hangar as Parker adjusted his navy blue Italian silk tie, his perfectly styled grey hair reflecting on the polished metal of the jet. His green eyes, accustomed to commanding boardrooms, now meticulously examined every detail of the aircraft that would take him to a crucial negotiation in New York. At 45 years old, he had built an empire, but something in his demeanor displayed a different uneasiness that morning. "I need to close this deal today. I can't let everything crumble now. 20 years of work depend on this meeting, and those vultures are just waiting for me to slip up to take everything I've built. I didn't sleep well last night." Amelia was restless too. "Her nightmares are coming back, and not being able to hear her voice kills me a little every day." The noise of the employees loading the last pieces of luggage echoed through the luxurious hangar, while Parker reviewed his folder of documents for the third time. His impeccable suit contrasted with the beads of sweat that began to form on his forehead, not from the heat, but from the pressure he carried. Suddenly, a different noise caught his attention, coming from the cargo area. "There's something wrong over there, I can feel it. Over all these years, I've learned to trust my instincts. They're what pulled me out of poverty and made me who I am today. And now they're screaming that something is out of place." A sudden movement between the suitcases made Parker approach cautiously. There, curled up between two Italian leather suitcases, was a girl who didn't appear to be more than 9 years old. Her frail body trembled, despite the intense heat, and her large brown eyes revealed a visceral fear. Her light brown skin was covered in a thin layer of feverish sweat, and her tangled brown hair framed a face marked by suffering. "My God, how did this child get in here? She's burning up with fever. I can see the same fear in her eyes that I saw in Amelia's when I found her. There's something about that look that torments me, something that reminds me of when I had nothing myself." The girl tried to get up in a sudden movement, but her frail legs gave out. Parker managed to catch her before she hit the floor, and it was at that moment that the sleeves of her tattered blouse rode up, revealing horrible marks. "Please, don't send me back. They'll get me if I go back. I can't take the beatings anymore, the nights without food, the punishments. I'd rather lose my life here than go back to that place. I just wanted to find someone who also speaks with their hands like my mother did." Vivian, the trusted housekeeper who always accompanied Parker on his travels, quickly approached upon hearing the commotion. Her graying hair and tanned skin carried the wisdom of her 58 years, and her brown eyes filled with concern at the scene. "Mr. Parker, we need to call the police immediately. It pains my heart to see a child in this state, but we can't get involved in trouble. You have a company to save, a wife to care for. You can't risk it all now." Dr. Colton, who coincidentally was at the hangar conducting a routine inspection of the sanitary conditions, quickly approached. His 38 years of medical experience took precedence when he saw the girl's state. His light brown skin paled as he quickly examined the burns, and his brown eyes narrowed with concern. "This girl needs urgent medical attention. She has a dangerously high fever and signs of severe malnutrition. Now is not the time to think about protocols. Now is the time to save a life. If we don't act now, we could lose her in a matter of minutes." Suddenly, the girl's body began violently convulsing in Parker's arms. Her eyes rolled back, and white foam began to form at the corner of her mouth. The millionaire felt his world stop, all his business concerns suddenly seeming insignificant. "Cancel the trip immediately. I don't care what I'm going to lose. I can't let this child die. Something tells me it's no coincidence that she appeared on my plane on this very day. Amelia always says through her gestures that fate doesn't make mistakes." The ambulance arrived in minutes that felt like hours. During the frantic journey to the hospital, the girl, who could barely speak, grabbed Parker's hand with a surprising strength for someone so frail. Between feverish deliriums, her words were almost inaudible, but some stood out. She also made signs. "How are you going to make signs for me now?" They didn't let her make signs anymore. Parker felt his heart tighten more and more, an inexplicable connection forming with that small stranger. There's something in this girl's eyes, something that reminds me of Amelia before she lost her voice. My God, is that why I feel this inexplicable need to protect her? What would Amelia say if she were here now? Suddenly, The grip on Parker's hand began to weaken. The ambulance's machines began emitting a shrill, desperate sound, while the girl's breathing became weaker and weaker. The ambulance doctor began emergency procedures, and Parker felt the world crumbling around him. I can't lose this girl. I can't let her leave without even knowing her name, without understanding why she appeared in my life. Please, God, don't let her die. I've already lost so much in life. I can't lose anyone else without even having a chance to help. The little stranger's face grew paler and paler as the paramedics struggled to stabilize her. Parker, firmly holding her small, frail hand, felt an anguish he hadn't experienced since the day Amelia lost her voice. If this girl survives, I swear I'll find out her story. I'll understand why she speaks in signs. I'll protect her from whoever made those horrible marks on her. No matter the cost, no matter what I lose. Some things are worth more than all the money in the world. The doors of the private hospital burst open violently as the gurney with Sadie entered, accompanied by a medical team on high alert. Parker ran alongside, his Italian shoes now stained with the girl's seizure blood, his rumpled suit showing the battle waged in the ambulance. Dr. Colton led the team, shouting precise orders as they pushed the gurney through the marble corridors. She can't die, Doctor. This girl appeared in my path for some reason, and now that whole $1 million meeting seems so small, so insignificant. How could I worry about money when children are being tortured like this? The heart monitor emitted erratic sounds as the team fought to stabilize Sadie. Dr. Colton worked tirelessly, his experienced hands moving with surgical precision. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he administered medications and monitored the girl's vital signs. Parker, forced to wait outside the emergency room, pressed his hands against the glass. Why do I feel like I know this girl? There's something in her eyes, something that reminds me so much of Amelia before that terrible day. My God, is that why I can't abandon her? Amelia arrived at the hospital like a silent hurricane, her black hair disheveled and brown eyes wide with worry. Seeing Sadie through the emergency room glass, her entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. Her fingers moved frantically in signs that Parker knew all too well, the same ones she made during her nightmares. Love, what's happening? I've never seen you like this since that day. Why is this girl affecting you so much? Your eyes, they have the same terror they had when I found you that night. Dr. Colton emerged from the emergency room with a grave expression, his eyes revealing a concern that went beyond the professional. As he explained the situation to Parker, his words seemed like direct blows to the businessman's heart. Mr. Parker, we've found a severe heart condition, the kind we only see in cases of prolonged severe trauma. Her heart is suffering from years of abuse and malnutrition. If we don't act quickly, we could lose her at any moment. And there's more. The marks on her body. Someone did that deliberately. Vivian arrived in a hurry, carrying a change of clean clothes for Parker, her experienced eyes immediately capturing the gravity of the situation. As she helped organize the documents for admission, 2 social workers crossed the hospital doors, their tense faces indicating they brought bad news. Mr. Parker, this girl escaped from the Santa Cruz orphanage after an alleged accident. But look at those marks. What kind of accident leaves perfectly round cigarette burn marks? I've worked in places like that. I know evil when I see it. Amelia flatly refused to leave Sadie's side, her fingers moving in desperate signs that Parker translated with a heavy heart. The inexplicable connection between his wife and the unknown girl became more evident with each passing moment. Parker, Amelia is saying we can't let them take the girl away. She says there's something familiar about those injuries, something that makes her remember a time she tried to forget. I've never seen her so agitated since she lost her voice. Sadie's fever began to rise again, her small body writhing as she deliriously gestured. Her fingers moved in the air, making gestures that made Amelia grow paler and paler. Dr. Colton watched the scene with clinical interest and human concern. Her gestures, they're exactly like the ones my mother made before she disappeared. Please don't let them catch me again. They don't like it when we sign. They say it's the devil's work, but it's the only way I have to remember her. Parker, adjusting his jacket sleeve, noticed something that made his blood run cold. On Sadie's delicate wrist, deep and recent handcuff marks stained her childlike skin. His hands trembled as he examined the injuries, his mind refusing to accept the cruelty he saw. What kind of monsters handcuff a child? How can people like that exist? Amelia, now I understand why you can't let her go. You see in her the same suffering you lived through, don't you? That's why your nightmares came back. Amelia approached the bed, her fingers gently caressing Sadie's sweat-soaked hair. The girl, in her feverish delirium, muttered broken words about signs and secrets, about punishments for speaking with her hands. Dr. Colton was taking frantic notes, his eyes moving between the monitors and the scene in front of him. We need to keep this girl here, Parker. It's not just her heart that's hurt. There are much deeper wounds we need to understand, and something tells me your wife is the key to unraveling this mystery. A terrified scream cut through the air of the room, freezing everyone in place. Sadie sat up abruptly in the bed, her eyes wide with pure terror, her hands moving in frantic gestures that only Amelia seemed to understand. Parker held his violently trembling wife, while Dr. Colton tried to calm the girl. They're coming to get me again. Don't let them take me. They don't like it when we speak with our hands. They say it's a sin. But my mother taught me. She said it was our secret language. Please don't let them hurt me again. Vivian positioned herself protectively at the doorway, her years of experience with traumatized children evident in her stance. Amelia was making increasingly agitated signs, and Parker translated with a choked voice. The atmosphere in the room was one of palpable tension, as Sadie's heart monitors showed worrying fluctuations. Parker, Amelia is saying we need to protect this girl at all costs. She says she's seen those eyes before, that same terror. She says that if we don't do something now, Sadie will have the same fate as who, Amelia? Why are you trembling so much? Parker's phone vibrated incessantly in his pocket as he walked down the hospital hallway, trying to get away from Sadie's room so as not to disturb her. On the screen, dozens of missed calls from his partners blinked threateningly. When he finally answered, the voice on the other end was razor sharp. Do you have any idea what you've just done? 20 years of work thrown in the trash because of a beggar. The Japanese won't wait, Parker. Either you get on the next flight or you can consider it all lost. Your fortune, your reputation, everything you've built. It'll turn to dust because of a child you don't even know. Dr. Colton approached Parker as soon as he hung up the phone, his usually composed face now marked by genuine concern. The doctor held trembling hands clutching test results, and his usually steady voice faltered as he explained the situation. Her heart is much more damaged than we thought, Mr. Parker. Each beat is a struggle, as if something had hurt not only the muscle but this girl's very will to live. If we don't start intensive treatment immediately, we could lose her at any moment, and even then, even with all the treatment, I can't guarantee she'll survive. Amelia moved frantically down the hallway, her fingers forming signs so quickly that Parker could barely keep up. Her wide brown eyes were panicked as she tried to communicate something about the orphanage, something that seemed to suffocate her from within. Parker, I need you to pay very close attention to Amelia's signs now. She's saying she knows that place, that there's something terrible happening inside. She says Sadie's gestures are no coincidence, that there's a reason she communicates this way. My God, Amelia, calm down. I've never seen you so desperate. Vivian hurried down the hallway, carrying a change of clean clothes and some basic toiletries. As she turned the corner, she found Amelia leaning against the wall, silent tears streaming down her face as her fingers kept moving relentlessly. The housekeeper dropped the clothes, running to support Amelia. Girl, what happened? In 20 years working for you, I've never seen you like this. There's something about this child, isn't there? Something that makes you remember that time you never wanted to tell me about. Sadie woke up disoriented, her brown eyes scanning the room in panic until they found Amelia. Then something extraordinary happened. Her small hands began to form specific gestures, a silent language that made Amelia stagger backward. Parker watched in awe the silent communication between the two. How does she know those signs, Amelia? They're exactly the same ones you created, those you never taught anyone but me. How can a girl who's never seen you know our secret language? Dr. Colton entered the room holding a thick folder, his face revealing the weight of the news he carried. Parker felt the ground disappear from under his feet as he saw the numbers for the treatment. Half his fortune would be needed to give Sadie a chance at survival. The doctor explained the necessary procedures, but Parker could only think about how to save both the girl and his company. 50 million pesos. That's all I have liquid after the partners froze the accounts. If I pay for the treatment, I lose my power in the company. If I don't pay, I lose this girl who, for some inexplicable reason, seems to have such a deep connection with Amelia. The sound of altered voices in the hallway caught everyone's attention. Two women from the orphanage entered the hospital like owners of the place, their heels authoritatively beating on the floor. Vivian instinctively stood in front of the room's door, while Amelia approached Sadie more closely. "We've come to pick up the minor Sadie Hernandez. She is the property of the Santa Cruz orphanage and escaped during a disciplinary procedure. If you don't return her immediately, we'll call the authorities. And believe me, you don't want the police involved in this matter." Parker noticed that Amelia had become paralyzed, her eyes fixed on the orphanage director who had just arrived. It was a look of recognition, of pure terror that he had only seen once before, the night he found her voiceless. "Amelia, do you know this woman? Why are you trembling like that? What happened in that place that you could never tell me?" The tension in the hallway was palpable as the orphanage director approached, her cold smile freezing everyone's blood. Sadie began to scream in the room, her frantic gestures begging not to be taken back. Dr. Colton tried to argue about the patient's critical condition, but the woman seemed deaf to any appeal. "This girl needs to learn that there are consequences for disobedience. And as for you, Amelia, how long did you think you could hide? I thought you had learned your lesson about meddling where you're not called." The world seemed to spin in slow motion when Amelia finally met the director's eyes. Her entire body shuddered, and before Parker could reach her, she collapsed on the hallway floor. The dull thud of her fall was accompanied by a terrified scream from Sadie, while Dr. Colton ran to help Amelia. "My God, what did this woman do to you, Amelia? What terrible secrets does this orphanage hide? And why do I have the terrible feeling that I'm only beginning to discover the truth?" Amelia regained consciousness in the room next to Sadie, her fingers immediately searching for something to write with. Dr. Colton tried to keep her in bed, but she struggled with a desperate urgency, her brown eyes fixed on the notepad on the nearby table. Parker held her trembling hand, placing the notepad in her lap. "Calm down, my love. You're still weak. I've never seen you like this in all these years. What did that woman awaken in you? What terrible memories are these that make you tremble just by remembering?" A shrill scream cut through the air, coming from Sadie's room. The girl had woken up and seen the orphanage representatives through the hallway window, her small body twisting in panic as she tried to hide under the sheets. Amelia leapt out of bed, ignoring her own weakness, her fingers moving in frantic signs that Parker could barely follow. "They can't take her, Parker. Sadie is screaming that she'd rather die than go back there. She says her sister—" "My God, she has a sister. How can there be more children suffering in that place?" Parker's phone rang again, and his accountant's voice sounded like a death sentence. The trip cancellation had been the last straw. Investors were withdrawing their support en masse, stocks plummeted, and the company he had spent 2 decades building was crumbling in a matter of hours. His hands trembled as he held the handset. 20 years of work. Everything I built is crumbling because I chose to save a girl. But how could I have done differently? How could I have boarded that plane, knowing I was abandoning a child to her fate? Vivian was adjusting Sadie's covers when her gaze fell on the symbol embroidered on the orphanage representatives' uniforms, an inverted cross inside a circle of thorns. Her tanned face instantly paled, her wrinkled hands beginning to tremble. Parker noticed her reaction. "That symbol, God in heaven, it can't be the same place. I thought they had closed that hell 20 years ago, after what happened to those girls. How can they still be operating? How can they still be hurting children after everything they did?" Sadie, still trembling, asked for paper and pencil through gestures. Her small hands moved quickly over the paper, drawing 2 girls holding hands. Tears streamed down her face as she pointed to one of the figures, and then to herself, and to the other figure with desperation in her eyes. Amelia watched the scene with palpable anguish. "My sister is still in there, trapped in that horrible place. They separated us when we tried to escape together. She helped me get out, stayed behind to give me time. I need to save her before it's too late, before they do to her what they did to me." Amelia began making frantic gestures to Vivian, her eyes pleading for understanding. The governess watched the signs with growing horror on her face, recognizing each movement as if they were shouted words. Parker watched the silent communication between the 2 women, feeling that a terrible secret was about to come to light. Vivian is saying that the gestures are identical to the ones she saw 20 years ago when she worked in the kitchen of that place. How is it possible for Sadie to know how to make the exact same signs? Dr. Colton was conducting a thorough examination of Amelia, who had finally agreed to be evaluated after her fainting spell. As he lifted the sleeve of her blouse, the doctor froze. There, almost invisible with time, were scars identical to Sadie's. The same circular pattern, the same burn marks, like a grotesque echo of the past in the present. "This is no coincidence, Mr. Parker. These marks they're old, but they're exactly the same as the girls. Someone used the same method, the same form of torture 20 years apart." Amelia was frantically writing on the notepad, her hands shaking so much that the words were barely legible. Parker read over her shoulder, his face paling with each line. Sadie watched everything from her bed, her fingers moving in the same patterns Amelia used. "They punish anyone who tries to communicate with signs. They say it's the devil's language. But it was the only way we had to communicate without them understanding. The only way to plan escapes, to comfort each other on the nights of terror." Vivian held Amelia's hands, tears streaming down her wrinkled face as she watched the gestures she made. The governess seemed to age years with every second, the weight of old memories weighing on her shoulders. Parker had never seen her so shaken in 20 years of service. "They're the same gestures, Parker. The same secret language the girls developed to survive in that place. Amelia didn't lose her voice by accident. They took it from her as punishment for trying to protect the others." Sadie suddenly sat up in bed, her eyes fixed on Amelia as she made a specific series of gestures, movements that made Parker's wife stagger back in shock. Vivian let out a moan of recognition, her hands covering her mouth. "That's the signal. The same signal they used to warn about the arrival of the torturers. How could this girl know? Unless someone from the past survived and taught her." Dr. Colton was examining the old records he had managed to access, his eyes widening with every page. The coincidences were impossible to ignore. The same methods, the same patterns of injuries, as if time had not passed. "Mr. Parker, this goes far beyond a runaway girl. There's a pattern here, something systematic that has been happening for decades, and your wife may be the key to exposing it all." Parker watched Amelia make increasingly frantic gestures to Vivian, who responded with nods of understanding and horror. The businessman felt his world crumbling as the pieces began to fall into place. His wife, the girl, the orphanage, the scars, the gestures. Amelia is saying they can't take Sadie back. She says if the girl goes back there, she'll have the same fate as the others, as all the others who tried to speak out. Amelia scribbled something on the paper and showed it to Vivian, who dropped the notepad from her trembling hands. The governess leaned against the wall, her face a mask of terror and recognition. Sadie kept making the same gestures, like a silent echo of a past that refused to die. "Mr. Parker, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've kept for 20 years, since I found Amelia on that dreadful night. I was there. I saw everything happen. And now, it's happening again." Vivian approached Parker, her hands shaking as she held the notepad Amelia had written on. Her eyes were filled with tears as she began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was the cook at the orphanage back then. I saw Amelia arrive as a social worker, young and full of hope. I saw when she began to suspect the marks on the children. I saw when she created the sign language to communicate secretly with them. And I saw when they found out and—" Vivian gripped Parker's arm tightly, her trembling hands and tearful eyes fixed on the two survivors of that hell. The businessman watched Amelia and Sadie exchanging identical signs, like a macabre mirror, separated by 20 years of pain. "I was there that night, Parker. I saw when they found out that Amelia was teaching the girls to communicate silently. I saw when they dragged her to the punishment room, her screams echoing down the hallways. Screams that grew fainter until they turned into complete silence. She never spoke again after that night. And now—" Vivian stopped abruptly, her face paling as she saw Amelia make a sharp gesture that made Sadie scream in panic. It was the sign that meant they were coming back. Through the bedroom window, shadows moved in the hallway, and the unmistakable sound of heavy boots approached slowly. Days later, Parker's mansion never seemed as quiet as the moment the car pulled up to the main entrance. Dr. Colton had been reluctant to release Sadie, but after 3 days of intensive observation and the promise of daily visits, he finally relented. Parker carried the girl in his arms while Amelia led the way, her eyes scanning every corner as if expecting to find danger lurking in the shadows. "I don't care what they say. This girl is not going back to that place. They can call me crazy. They can try to destroy me. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm doing something truly important. Amelia taught me that some things are worth more than all the money in the world." Amelia led Sadie to the room she had personally prepared, her hands gently settling the small girl on the huge bed that seemed to swallow her frail body. Her fingers began to move through the air, forming the signs she had long kept only to herself. Sadie watched with rapt attention, her eyes shining with a mixture of recognition and hope. That's how Mom used to do it too. She said it was our secret language, our way of saying things no one else could know. But they didn't like it when we made signs. They said it was the devil's work. How do you know our language? Vivian watched from the door as Amelia patiently taught each movement, her experienced eyes noticing how Sadie's fingers seemed to know the gestures even before being taught. The governess held a tray with tea, but her hands were shaking so much that the cups clinked. "Mr. Parker, I'm seeing the same scene from 20 years ago. It's as if time hadn't passed. Amelia is teaching the same signs, making the same movements. How can this girl know them? Who could have taught her?" Sadie reproduced each gesture with an eerie precision, as if her body held a memory her mind didn't fully comprehend. Amelia would freeze for seconds when she saw certain movements, painful memories flashing across her eyes like lightning. Parker watched it all from the room's armchair, his heart aching to see his wife relive traumas he could never fully understand. "It's amazing how her hands move exactly like yours, Amelia. It's almost as if someone had passed this language on, keeping alive a form of resistance you created." The first time Sadie truly smiled was during dinner. Vivian had prepared tacos, and the girl ate as if she had never tasted anything so delicious in her life. Amelia watched her with tears in her eyes, her hands moving in soft signs that made the girl smile even more. Parker felt his heart melt at the scene, momentarily forgetting all the piling problems. "It's the first time I see her truly relaxed, truly acting like a child. My God, what did they do to her in that place? How can there be people capable of stealing a child's childhood?" Parker's phone rang like an ominous omen during dessert. The voice on the other end was cold, calculating, cutting like a knife. The investors had gathered in an emergency assembly, and the ultimatum was clear. Either Parker returned Sadie to the orphanage and resumed his business obligations, or he would lose everything: his shares, his position in the company, his fortune. His hands were shaking as he hung up. "They're pushing me against the wall. They want me to choose between my empire and a helpless child. How can I even consider returning her to that hell? Money means nothing compared to what we've uncovered." Amelia spent the afternoon showing family albums to Sadie, her fingers dancing in the air as she told silent stories that made the girl laugh. Vivian noticed how each gesture seemed to awaken memories in Amelia, some making her expression cloud over momentarily. It's as if each movement carries a story, a piece of pain Amelia has kept for all these years. And this girl, it's as if she's a mirror of the past, reflecting traumas that never fully healed. When night fell, the mood in the mansion subtly changed. The shadows seemed denser, and Sadie grew increasingly restless. Amelia refused to leave the girl's room, her eyes fixed on the window as if expecting to see something terrible emerge from the darkness. "They always came at night, didn't they, Amelia? It was when no one could hear the screams, when no one could see the tears. Is that why you still can't sleep when it's too dark?" The nightmare began around midnight. Sadie's screams echoed through the mansion's corridors, making everyone rush to her room. The girl was thrashing violently in bed, her arms moving in frantic gestures Amelia recognized with horror. Parker tried to wake her when she jumped out of bed in panic, running towards the large Victorian mirror. "Don't let them take me again. I can see them in the shadows. They're coming to get me. I don't want to go back to the dark room. I don't want to smell the cigarette smoke again." The sound of the mirror shattering was deafening in the night silence. Sadie had stumbled in her panic, knocking over the antique mirror that shattered into hundreds of shards on the floor. Amelia ran to protect the girl from the glass, her purse dropping in the process. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to break anything, I swear. Please don't send me back, I'd rather die than go back there. They'll hurt me again, they'll mistreat me again." Vivian bent down to help pick up the shards when something caught her eye, a yellowish reflection among the shattered pieces. Her eyes widened as she realized it was an old photograph that had fallen from Amelia's purse. There, reflected in the shards of the mirror, was an image that made her blood run cold. Amelia, young and smiling, wearing the orphanage's uniform. But it wasn't the uniform of the social workers. It was the same uniform Sadie wore when Parker found her. My God, Amelia wasn't an employee of the orphanage. She was one of the children, and that's sign language. She didn't create it, she learned it there. That's why Sadie knows the gestures. They're passed from victim to victim, a silent survival chain that has lasted for decades. The sound of picking up shards abruptly stopped when Amelia saw the photo reflected in the broken mirror. Her fingers began to tremble violently as she tried to reach for the image, but Vivian was faster. The governess held the old photograph with shaking hands, her eyes alternating between the young Amelia in the picture, wearing the characteristic uniform of the orphanage inmates, and the current Amelia, whose face had lost all color. "Now I understand everything. You were never a social worker, you were one of them. That's why you know every scar of Sadie's, every gesture, every night terror. You survived the same hell." Parker watched the scene paralyzed, thousands of small details from the last 20 years finally making sense. Amelia's nightmares, her dread of confined spaces, the way she always averted her gaze from news about orphanages. Sadie, still trembling on the floor, looked at the photo with a mixture of horror and recognition. The girl in the photo, she wears the same uniform as me. She has the same marks on her arms as me. Is that why you understand our signs? Is that why you know exactly where it will hurt when they hurt us? Amelia then did something no one expected. She picked up one of the larger shards of the mirror and began to write on the floor, her hands shaking but determined. Parker approached to read, his heart nearly stopping as he deciphered the words. "I have to tell everything now. I can't let it happen again. The story needs to end." Vivian let out a muffled sob as she saw the date on the back of the photograph. Exactly 20 years before, on the same day she found Amelia semi-conscious in the back of the orphanage, her vocal cords destroyed forever. The morning dawned in the mansion's garden when Amelia led Sadie along the stone paths between the rose bushes. The fresh air seemed to clear some of the terror from the night before, and Amelia had a different sparkle in her eyes as her hands danced in the air, teaching the girl the deepest signs of her silent language. Parker watched from the veranda, his coffee cooling forgotten in the cup. It's amazing how they seem to understand each other perfectly, as if they shared an ancestral language. Now that I know the truth about Amelia, every gesture seems laden with an even deeper meaning, like invisible scars dancing in the air. Sadie followed each movement with an almost hypnotic attention, her little fingers reproducing the patterns with a precision that went beyond mere imitation. Suddenly, without Amelia having taught her, the girl made a specific gesture, her fingers intertwined in a peculiar way, forming a pattern that made Amelia freeze instantly. That's how Mum used to calm me down when I had nightmares. She said she learned it from someone special, someone who had also survived. It's the sign of hope, isn't it? That even in the deepest darkness, there is a light guiding us. Vivian was in the office organizing documents when she found an old folder fallen behind the file cabinet. Her hands trembled as she recognized the letterhead of the local newspaper from 20 years ago. The headline, yellowed by time, spoke of a scandal involving the Santa Cruz orphanage, allegations of abuse that were mysteriously hushed up, investigations that disappeared without explanation. My God, it's all here. The allegations, the testimonies that went missing, the children who tried to speak and were then silenced forever. How did they manage to cover up something so monstrous for so long? Parker was receiving increasingly devastating news on his cell phone. Not only had his business accounts been frozen, but his personal accounts as well. His fingers frantically scrolled across the screen, trying to understand the extent of the financial disaster. They're not just pressuring me, they're cornering me. They want to force me to return Sadie by cutting off all my resources. But they don't understand. It's no longer about money. How can I even think of handing this girl over after discovering that my own wife survived the same hell? In the garden, Sadie began making a gesture that no one had taught her, her fingers forming the delicate pattern of a butterfly trying to escape from a cage. Amelia stumbled back as she saw that movement, her face losing all color. It was her most secret signal, the one she had created on her darkest nights at the orphanage, the symbol of her own struggle for freedom. It's not possible. That sign was my secret, my promise of survival. I only taught it to one person. Just one on that night before I lost my voice forever. How can this girl know the butterfly of freedom? Vivian rushed into the garden when she saw Amelia in a state of shock, her years of experience recognizing the signs of an imminent collapse. She held the mistress before she could fall, guiding her to a stone bench. Sadie watched everything with wide eyes, her hands still forming the butterfly in the air. I was there that night, Amelia. I was the one who found you behind the orphanage, bleeding, your voice already silenced forever. I never told you, but I also saw when you taught that sign to one of the younger girls, shortly before everything happened. Parker knelt in front of Amelia, holding her trembling hands as Vivian finally revealed the full story. The governor spoke with a choked voice, years of secrets weighing on every word. They found out that Amelia was teaching the girls to communicate in silence, creating a form of resistance they couldn't control. The punishment was, it was terrible. But before that, she managed to pass her knowledge on, ensuring that her secret language would survive. Feeling the tension in the air, Sadie grabbed her sketchbook and began urgently drawing something. Her little fingers moved quickly across the paper, creating the image of a young woman making the same gestures as Amelia. When she showed the drawing, everyone fell silent. It was her mother, reproducing exactly the signs that Amelia had created so many years ago. Mom said the signs were our most precious treasure, our way of keeping alive the memory of someone who fought for us. She made me promise never to forget, to pass it on when I found other girls in need of hope. Amelia approached Sadie with silent tears streaming down her face. Her fingers gently brushed a lock of hair from the girl's shoulder, and then she saw it. A small star-shaped mark identical to her own scar, identical to the one she had seen so many years ago on the shoulder of a young inmate who became her confidant. It can't be a coincidence. It can't be that mark. They made it on all those who tried to escape, but this one is different. I myself drew this star, transforming a punishment scar into a symbol of hope. How can the same mark be here after all this time? Sadie sensed that something important was happening, her eyes alternating between her own shoulder and Amelia's troubled face. Her fingers formed the butterfly sign again, but this time accompanied by whispered words. Mom said the star was special, that it was a gift from someone who gave her the courage to survive. She said that one day I would meet the person who invented our secret language, and that when that happened, I would know because of the star. Vivian held the document she had found with trembling hands, pieces of a dark puzzle finally fitting together. Parker read over her shoulder, his expression changing from shock to horrified understanding. The dates, the marks, the signs. Amelia not only survived that place, she created a form of resistance that remains alive to this day. Every gesture, every scar, tells a story of survival that refuses to be silenced. Amelia was now meticulously examining Sadie's shoulder, her fingers tracing every detail of the little star. Long-buried memories resurfaced, the young inmate who became her friend, the night spent teaching the signs, the promise to keep that language of survivors alive. It was her. Sadie's mother was one of the girls I tried to save. That's why the girl knows every gesture, every meaning. They're not just signs. It's a legacy of resistance passed from mother to daughter. Parker watched the scene with a lump in his throat, finally understanding the true extent of what they had discovered. His financial concerns seemed insignificant in the face of the strength of that connection spanning decades. It's not just a language that survived, it's a chain of hope. Every gesture Sadie makes is an echo of all those who came before her, a living proof that they failed to silence the truth. Vivian approached with the newspaper clippings, showing an old photo where several girls appeared in the background of the orphanage. Amelia pointed with a trembling hand to two figures, herself still with her voice, and beside her a young woman with the same star mark on her shoulder. That night, the night I lost my voice, I had just taught the butterfly sign to her. It was my last gift before they discovered me. I never imagined that this small act of rebellion would remain alive, passing from generation to generation. Amelia's face paled as her fingers traced every detail of the small star on Sadie's shoulder. There it was, the tiny flaw on the lower stroke, the slightly crooked curve at the top, exactly as she had drawn it with a heated needle 2 decades ago. The tremor in her hands intensified as a long-buried memory surfaced, a young inmate crying in her arms, begging to learn the secret signs before Amelia was taken to the punishment room. Parker and Vivian watched in utter silence as Amelia frantically wrote on her notepad, tears staining the paper. It's the same star, exactly the same one I drew that night. Sadie is not just a survivor's daughter. She's the daughter of the girl I tried to save, the last person who heard my voice before they took it from me forever. At that moment, Sadie made the freedom butterfly sign once again, and the weight of the truth hit them all like a wave. The circle of horror and hope was complete, connecting past and present in a single star-shaped scar. Parker's phone rang like a death sentence in the mansion's silence. The discovery of the star still hung heavy in the air as he answered the call in his study. The board president's voice was razor-sharp. Either he boarded the 11 p.m. flight to Tokyo, or he would lose everything he had built over the past 20 years. You have exactly 4 hours to decide, Parker. The empire you've built or some random orphan, the choice is yours. But remember, if you're not on that flight, come Monday you won't have a company left to run, and then how will you support your little charity projects? Amelia wandered the mansion's corridors like a restless ghost, her nightmares now pursuing her even while awake. The discovery of the connection to Sadie's mother had opened floodgates of memory she had fought for 2 decades to keep shut. Her fingers constantly moved in the air, retelling tales of terror that no one could hear. The nightmares are becoming more real, Parker. I can smell the punishment room. I can hear the other girls screaming. And now, looking at Sadie, I see her mother's face begging me to teach her the signs before it was too late. Vivian methodically moved through the mansion, her experienced eyes catching details that once seemed insignificant. In the library, she found old news clippings about the orphanage. In the kitchen, a notebook Amelia kept hidden. In the maids' quarters, photographs she had kept for years without fully understanding their meaning. The pieces were always here, right under our noses. The way Amelia reacted to certain dates, the nightmares getting worse at specific times of the year, the way she always watched orphaned children with that look of deep pain. It was all connected to a story she couldn't tell. The dinner began silently in the dining room. Sadie played with the food on her plate, while Amelia watched her with teary eyes, still processing the discovery about the star. Parker frantically consulted his watch. Each passing minute a step closer to an impossible decision. How can I choose between saving my company and protecting this family that fate has placed in my path? God, why did it have to be right today? Right when we discovered that Sadie is more than just a coincidence in our lives. The first sign that something was wrong came when Sadie dropped her fork, her little hand clutching her chest tightly. Amelia was the first to notice, her eyes widening in panic as she saw the girl's face losing color. In seconds, Sadie was on the floor, convulsing, while Parker screamed for help. She's having another heart attack, worse than all the others. My God, what do we do? The flight to Tokyo leaves in 2 hours, but how can I leave with Sadie in this state? Vivian ran to call an ambulance while Parker carried Sadie in his arms. The businessman frantically looked at his watch. Only 2 hours left until the flight that would determine the future of his company. Amelia made desperate gestures, begging him not to leave. If I miss that flight, I lose everything I've built. But if I go, I could lose something far more valuable. The chance to save not only Sadie, but to heal wounds that have bled for 20 years. Amelia, amidst the chaos of the emergency, began making gestures Parker had never seen before. Her fingers trembled as she formed the signs, and for the first time in years he saw tears streaming freely down his wife's face. Vivian, watching the scene, let out an exclamation of surprise as she understood the meaning. My God, Parker. Amelia is trying to say she's pregnant. After so many years trying, after so many losses, she finally succeeded, and she chooses this moment to tell us, as if to show us that life always finds a way, even in the darkest of hours. Dr. Colton arrived at the mansion in record time, his expression grave as he examined Sadie. The doctor worked quickly, connecting monitors and administering medications, while Parker paced back and forth, torn between his constantly ringing phone and the girl's critical condition. Her heart isn't responding as it should. The stress of the recent discoveries, the emotion of the connection with Amelia. It's all overloading an organ already fragile from years of mistreatment. Amelia held Sadie's hand tightly, her fingers intertwined as if she could transfer her own life force to the girl. Vivian brought damp towels, trying to lower the fever that was starting to rise. Parker, standing at the door, watched the scene with a broken heart. How can I abandon them now? Amelia pregnant, Sadie between life and death. But if I don't go, I'll lose everything. What kind of future can I offer them without my company, without resources for Sadie's treatment? Dr. Colton was connecting another monitor when he noticed something strange in Sadie's heartbeats. The numbers began to fluctuate dangerously, and the girl in her semi-conscious state began to murmur disconnected words. Amelia leaned closer, her eyes widening as she recognized the words. "Doctor, her vital signs are very unstable. If we can't stabilize her in the next few minutes, we'll have to rush her to the hospital." Vivian noticed that Amelia had suddenly become motionless, her fingers frozen in the air, as if she had seen a ghost. Parker approached, trying to understand what was happening. Sadie continued murmuring, her voice becoming clearer despite the fever. "She's calling for her mother. But it's not just that. There's something else in her words. Something that's making Amelia tremble like I've never seen before." The clock showed less than an hour until the flight, when Sadie suddenly opened her eyes, her weak but determined voice cutting through the tense silence of the room. Her fingers moved, forming the butterfly sign as her words came out like a sigh. "Mom told me never to forget her name, Amelia Angeles Cortez. She said one day I would find the person who saved her, the person who taught her how to fly like a butterfly." Amelia staggered back, her hands trembling violently as she wrote something in the notebook. Parker took the paper, his eyes widening as he read, "It's my name, my full name before I got married, before I lost my voice. How could she know? I only revealed my full name to one person that night, to the young woman who begged me to learn the signs before they took me away." Parker looked from the paper to Sadie, then to Amelia, as Dr. Colton worked frantically to stabilize the girl's vital signs. The businessman held his phone in one hand and the company's rescue letter in the other, the weight of his choices suffocating like a knot in his throat. It's all connected. Sadie isn't just the daughter of a survivor from the orphanage. She's the living link between the past and the present. And now, at the moment we finally understand everything, I have to choose between saving my company or staying here. My God, what kind of choice is that? Sadie, in her feverish delirium, continued whispering, "Amelia Angeles Cortez, the last voice that sang to me before I was born." Mom said her voice was silenced on the same night she discovered she was pregnant with me. At the moment when Sadie uttered those words, the heart monitor began emitting a shrill and desperate sound. Dr. Colton ran to adjust the medications, while Amelia collapsed into the armchair, her face a mask of shock and recognition. Parker dropped the phone, Sadie's words echoing in his mind like thunder. Vivian leaned against the wall to keep from falling, her trembling hands covering her mouth in awe. Time seemed to have frozen in that room when Sadie, struggling against unconsciousness, completed the 2-decade puzzle. Amelia Angeles Cortez, the last voice that sang to me before I was born. Mom said your voice was silenced the same night she found out she was pregnant with me. Amelia's face contorted in an expression of pain and memory, her hands frantically forming the butterfly sign as big tears streamed down her face. Now she knew why she could never forget that last night, why the face of that young intern had haunted her for 20 years in her nightmares. It wasn't just a girl she tried to save. It was a mother protecting the life she had just discovered she was carrying. Dr. Colton held Sadie's last test results with trembling hands, his normally composed face now marked by genuine concern. The hospital corridors seemed colder and more sterile as he explained the situation to Parker, each word weighing like lead in the air. "Her heart is failing, Mr. Parker." The last emotions, the discoveries about her mother, all of this caused a stress that her already fragile body is unable to cope with. If we don't start intensive treatment immediately, we may lose her in the next few hours. Parker barely had time to process the news about Sadie when his phone vibrated with an anonymous message. It was an audio file of a secret board meeting. His own partners, men he considered friends, had been planning his downfall for months. The cancellation of the trip was just the excuse they needed. I can't believe what I'm hearing. They were waiting for any misstep of mine, any reason to take me out of the company. All that ultimatum about the trip to Tokyo was a sham. They had already decided my fate long before Sadie came into our lives. Amelia was sitting in the waiting room, her hands protectively over her still imperceptible belly, when the first wave of nausea hit her. It wasn't a normal pregnancy nausea. Her whole body trembled, and beads of cold sweat trickled down her pale face. Vivian ran to support her, recognizing the same symptoms she saw that fateful night 20 years ago. That's happening again, isn't it? The same symptoms you had after that night in the punishment room. The body has memory, Amelia, and yours is reliving every moment since we discovered the truth about Sadie. Vivian took advantage of Amelia being attended to explore the hospital's old files. In a folder yellowed by time, she found something that made her heart skip a beat. Admission records from the orphanage, and there it was, in faded letters, the name that would change everything. Angeles Cortez, not as a patient, but as an emergency contact for a young pregnant inmate. My God, Amelia wasn't just an employee trying to help. She was registered as responsible for Sadie's mother. She tried to save them long before losing her voice. Sadie, who had briefly woken up, caught fragments of conversations about Parker's financial situation, Amelia's complicated pregnancy, all the problems her presence had triggered. Her tiny fingers began to tremble as she formed increasingly desperate signs. It's all my fault, isn't it? Mr. Parker is going to lose everything he has. Mrs. Amelia is feeling unwell because of me. Maybe it's better if I go back to the orphanage. At least there, only I will suffer. I won't ruin anyone else's life. Parker's phone rang again, but this time it wasn't one of his partners. It was a distorted voice, someone who clearly knew Amelia's past. The words came out like venom through the device. Your wife is not who you think she is, Mr. Parker. Why don't you ask her about the real reason for losing her voice? About the documents she destroyed before fleeing the orphanage? About the other children who disappeared that night? Amelia Angeles Cortez keeps much darker secrets than you can imagine. Amelia was by Sadie's bedside, her hands moving in frantic signs that neither Parker nor Vivian could fully follow. There was urgency in her gestures, as if she were trying to reveal something crucial before it was too late. Suddenly, her eyes rolled back and she fell forward, being caught by Vivian before hitting the floor. She was trying to tell us something about that night, something about Sadie's mother. Amelia, please wake up. What did you find out? What's so important that it's destroying you from the inside? Dr. Colton appeared in the hallway with a file of exams, his face a mask of perplexity as he compared Sadie and Amelia's results. There was something there, a pattern that defied all medical odds. Mr. Parker, I need you to see this. Sadie's genetic markers. There's an anomaly here, something that would only be possible if she had a direct relation with your wife. But how can that be possible if Amelia never had children before? Parker watched Amelia being tended to by the medical team, unconscious, while Sadie struggled for every breath in her room. The businessman held the exams in his shaking hands, decades of secrets and lies crumbling like a house of cards. All these years, all those fertility treatments that never worked. Could it be that Amelia knew? Could she have carried this guilt alone, this knowledge that somewhere there was a child who shared her blood? Suddenly, Dr. Colton let out an exclamation of surprise, his eyes fixed on a specific sequence of the exams. The doctor began frantically flipping through the pages, comparing data and dates with an almost palpable urgency. Dr. Colton let the exams fall onto the table, his hands trembling as he connected the last pieces of the medical puzzle. Parker approached, his eyes scanning the numbers and graphs that meant nothing to him, but made the doctor grow paler with each passing second. Vivian held the unconscious Amelia as she watched the scene, her heart racing at the doctor's expression. Mr. Parker, this changes everything. This genetic condition is so rare that there's only a 1 in a million chance of 2 unrelated people having it. The tests show that Sadie has the exact same mutation that's causing complications in Amelia's pregnancy. And there's more. Comparing with the old records from the orphanage that Vivian found, Sadie's mother displayed the same symptoms during her pregnancy. This can only mean one thing. The doctor paused, looking at the unconscious Amelia and then at Sadie through the room's window, both connected to monitors showing the same irregular heartbeat pattern. Sadie's mother wasn't just a young woman Amelia tried to help. Sadie is Amelia's daughter. She's not the grandmother of the child your wife is expecting. She's the sister. Dr. Colton's office was shrouded in palpable tension as he analyzed Amelia's latest exams. Parker held his wife's trembling hand, watching the doctor compare results with an increasingly grave expression. The sound of Sadie's heart monitor echoed from the room next door, a constant reminder of the fragility of the moment. Amelia is 6 weeks pregnant, Mr. Parker, but her condition is extremely delicate. The same genetic mutation that complicates Sadie's heart is present in the development of this baby. It's as if the past is repeating itself in a cruel and precise way. The doctor spread out a series of exams across his desk, pointing to identical patterns in Amelia and Sadie's results. His experienced hands traced lines between numbers and graphs that told a much larger story than mere medical data. This condition is so rare that it only exists in a few families worldwide. The fact that Sadie and Amelia share the exact same mutation is not a coincidence. It's irrefutable proof of direct relationship. The chances of this happening randomly are practically impossible. Parker could barely concentrate on the medical explanations. His phone kept vibrating with messages from his private investigator, who was scouring the past of Santa Cruz orphanage. The information arriving was increasingly disturbing. The orphanage had a secret basement wing, Doctor. Places where they took the girls who tried to run away or report the abuse. And there are records of a mysterious fire on the very night Amelia lost her voice. The same night Sadie's mother disappeared. Sadie, who had insisted on seeing her own medical file, began to tremble violently as she recognized something on the old pages. Her tiny fingers frantically pointed to a specific note, her eyes filling with tears as she made increasingly agitated gestures. Something's wrong here. That's not my mum's name written there. They lied, altered everything. The documents Mum showed me before she disappeared were different. Why would they do that? Why would they change her name? Vivian burst into the office with an old newspaper in her hands, her usually serene face marked by a frightening urgency. The yellowed headline spoke of a devastating fire at Santa Cruz orphanage, but it was the smaller details of the report that made her heart race. The fire started in the restricted wing, Parker. Exactly where they kept the medical records, where they kept the files on the pregnant inmates. And look at the date, it was the same night Amelia lost her voice, the same night Sadie's mother supposedly died in childbirth. Amelia, who had been listening with wide eyes, began frantically writing on her notepad. Her hands shook so much that the words were barely legible, but there was a desperate urgency to her movements. Suddenly she stopped, her face losing all color as she brought her hands to her belly. She's trying to tell us something about that night, Doctor. Something about the fire, about Sadie's mother's true identity. Why does her body react like this every time she tries to reveal the truth? Dr. Colton had risen and was pacing back and forth across the office, consulting old hospital files on his computer. His brows furrowed with concern as he read something on his screen. I found Sadie's mother's death record, but there are major inconsistencies here. The recorded time of death is earlier than the time of childbirth. How could a woman have given birth after she was already dead? And why has the attending physician's name been erased from the records? Parker watched his wife struggle against a new wave of nausea, his heart aching to see how much suffering those memories caused. Sadie, in the room next door, had started drawing something in her notebook, her little fingers moving with a feverish urgency. Amelia is reliving every moment of that night, isn't she? Each revelation, each new detail is like reliving the trauma. And now, pregnant again, with the same genetic condition, it's as if the past is demanding its due. Vivian approached Sadie, observing the drawing the girl was making with such fervor. It was two figures, a young woman and a child, making the same signs that Amelia used. The governess felt her heart skip a beat as she recognized the features of the woman's face in the drawing. Parker, come see this. Sadie is drawing memories of her mother, but look at the woman's face in the drawing. It's as if we're seeing Amelia 20 years younger. Dr. Colton continued his investigation in the hospital archives, each new discovery more disturbing than the last. His hands trembled slightly as he printed a series of old documents. The name in the orphanage records doesn't match the name in the hospital files. It's as if someone deliberately created two different identities for the same person. But why? What were they trying to hide? Amelia tried to get up suddenly, her fingers moving in frantic signs that Parker could barely keep up with. There was a desperation in her gestures that he had never seen before, as if she was finally ready to reveal a secret kept for 2 decades. She's saying something about a safe, Parker, a place where she kept documents before the fire, evidence no one found, truths no one knows. Sadie had stopped drawing, her eyes fixed on something that had fallen from the middle of the old medical record, a faded photograph that made her little body freeze. Amelia, even from her place in the office, sensed the change in the girl's energy and turned to look. Parker picked up the photo Sadie held with trembling hands, his world stopping for a moment. It's an old photograph from the orphanage, and there in the corner is a young woman teaching sign language to a group of girls. Her face, "My God, Amelia, it's you. You weren't just a staff member trying to help. You were one of the inmates." Dr. Colton approached with more documents, his eyes alternating between the photo and the papers in his hands. The puzzle was taking on a frightening shape. "Mr. Parker, I found something in the hospital's old archives. On the night of the fire, 2 patients were admitted. A young woman with her vocal cords destroyed, and a pregnant inmate in premature labor. In the records, they're listed as different people, but look at the photo. Look at the face of the young woman teaching the signs. It's the same person." Sadie held the photograph against her chest, silent tears streaming down her face as her fingers traced the outlines of the image. Amelia had stood up, stumbling towards the girls' room, her own fingers forming the same signs that appeared in the photo. Vivian and Parker watched the scene in shock, while Dr. Colton continued piecing together the medical puzzle. The signs she's making in the photo, they're exactly the same ones Amelia created, the same ones Sadie knows. They're not just gestures. It's a survival language passed from mother to daughter. At that moment, Sadie turned the photograph over, and they could all see the faded inscription on the back. "Amelia Angelis Cortez, teaching our secret language, 3 months before giving birth." The world seemed to stop when Amelia, trembling violently, made the sign of the freedom butterfly exactly like in the photo, where her young belly clearly showed the signs of pregnancy. The silence that followed was deafening. Vivian dropped the teacup she was holding, the sound of shattering porcelain echoing through the hospital corridors. Dr. Colton gripped the test results so tightly that the papers crumpled in his hands, his eyes fixed on the date of the photograph, exactly 9 months before Sadie's birth. Parker stumbled to the nearest chair, his mind reeling from the revelation that changed everything. Amelia, still standing, had silent tears streaming down her face as she continued making the butterfly sign, as if trapped in that frozen moment of the photograph. Sadie looked from the photo to Amelia, her little fingers tracing the outline of the pregnant belly in the old image, and then, in a trembling voice, she whispered the words that completed the 2-decade puzzle. "I never understood why Mom cried every time she taught me the butterfly sign. She said it was a gift from someone who had to leave before meeting me. Now I know it wasn't someone who left. It was someone who was forced into silence." Amelia collapsed to the floor, her body shaking with silent sobs, as she cradled the new life growing in her womb, a life that carried the same blood, the same genetic condition, the same fate as her first daughter, the one torn from her arms on the night her voice was silenced forever. Amelia remained on the floor of the office for long minutes, her body still trembling from the devastating revelation, while Parker tried to process it. Dr. Colton gently helped her up, guiding her to the hospital chapel where she could have a moment of peace. Sadie, still in her bed, watched everything through the room window, her little fingers clutching the old photograph against her chest. Parker followed the group to the chapel, his phone vibrating incessantly with calls from shareholders. "How can I worry about money at a time like this? My wife has just discovered that her lost daughter died giving birth to Sadie, who now carries the same genetic condition that is threatening our baby. The empire I built seems so insignificant now, but without it, how will I save my family?" Dr. Colton pulled Parker aside into a corner of the chapel, while Vivian tried to calm Amelia. The doctor held a folder of exams with trembling hands, his usually serene face now marked by deep concern. The light passing through the stained glass created dancing shadows over the documents he showed the businessman. "Mr. Parker, I need to be absolutely clear about the gravity of the situation. Sadie's heart is failing rapidly, much faster than we anticipated. The emotional trauma of the latest discoveries has accelerated the deterioration. She needs an urgent transplant, and with this rare genetic condition. Well, we're looking for a needle in a haystack without a compatible donor in the next few days, maybe hours. I don't even want to contemplate the consequences." Parker went straight to his makeshift office at the hospital, his hands trembling as he typed frantic emails to his brokers. The shares of his company, once worth millions, were now being offered for a fraction of their value, a desperate attempt to raise funds for Sadie's treatment. The businessman could hardly believe the numbers flashing on his screen. 20 years of work turning to dust before my eyes, my entire empire crumbling. But what choice do I have? How can I care about money when Sadie is dying? When Amelia might lose another baby? They want to force me to choose between my company and my family. Little do they know that choice was made the moment I found that girl on my plane. Amelia was sitting in a wheelchair by the window of the administrative hallway when Dr. Colton returned with more exams. The doctor explained in a grave voice that the stress of the latest discoveries was dangerously affecting her current pregnancy. Vivian, by her side, translated Amelia's frantic signs. "Doctor, I can't worry about my own health now. For 20 years I believed my daughter had died in childbirth, but she lived long enough to have Sadie, to teach her our sign language, to pass on our star-shaped birthmark. How can I rest knowing that my granddaughter is dying from the same affliction that took her mother away from me? How can I protect this baby in my womb when I couldn't save her older sister?" Sadie was huddled behind the conference room door, her small body shaking, as she overheard the heated discussion about the astronomical costs of her treatment. Her fingers moved silently, forming the signs her mother had taught her, the same ones Amelia had created so long ago. "I always knew there was something different about me, something that made Mom cry every night while teaching me the signs. Now I understand I'm not just an orphan, I'm the last gift from a lost daughter to a silenced mother. And because of me, they're losing everything. Mr. Parker is selling his company, Mrs. Amelia might lose the baby. Maybe it's better if I disappear like Mum did." Vivian found the old records in a forgotten. Her hands trembled as she read the yellowed documents, detailed reports written by Amelia, denouncing the abuses at the orphanage, trying to save other girls from the same fate she had suffered. "Parker, Amelia wasn't just a victim-turned-social worker. She was a warrior trying to protect other children even while pregnant, even knowing the risks. Look at these dates. She started working at the orphanage exactly when she discovered her pregnancy. She was trying to change the system from the inside, trying to ensure no other girl went through what she did." Dr. Colton went in and out of the chapel continuously, bringing more results, more worrying news. Amelia had refused to remain on bed rest, insisting on staying close to Sadie. The doctor watched helplessly as his two patients deteriorated before his eyes. "Mr. Parker, Mrs. Amelia, you need to understand. We're dealing with a perfect storm here. Sadie needs an urgent transplant, but the only potentially compatible heart would be the baby Amelia is carrying. The same baby now at risk due to extreme stress. It's as if the past is cruelly demanding its price, forcing you into an impossible choice." Parker walked the administrative hallways like a ghost, signing paperwork, authorizing sales, watching his empire crumble piece by piece. Every penny would be needed to try and save Sadie, to keep Amelia stable, to give the baby a chance. How do I explain to my partners that I'm throwing away 20 years of work for a girl I found by chance? How do I make them understand it's not a coincidence, it's fate? That Sadie isn't just the granddaughter Amelia lost, she's living proof that some bonds are stronger than time, deeper than silence. Sadie watched it all from her room, her watchful eyes catching every detail, every worried expression. Through the window, she could see Parker in his office, dismantling his own company to save her. In the hallway, Amelia in her wheelchair fighting her own body to protect two lives, hers and the baby's. They're destroying themselves because of me, just like Mum destroyed herself trying to protect me. I can't let this happen again, Mrs. Amelia needs to save her baby, Mr. Parker needs to save his company. Maybe it's time for me to do what Mom did. Disappear to protect the ones I love. Vivian found Amelia crying silently in the chapel, her fingers repeatedly forming the butterfly sign. The housekeeper knelt by her side, holding her trembling hands. Amelia, I found your old reports. You didn't just lose your voice for teaching the girls signs. You lost it for trying to expose the truth about the orphanage. You were gathering evidence, building a case, all while carrying your daughter in the womb. What happened that night? What did you uncover that was so terrible they permanently silenced you? Parker had finally lost complete control of the company. His last shares sold for a fraction of their value. His empire reduced to crumbs. In his makeshift office at the hospital, he signed the final paperwork when he heard a commotion in the hallway. "Mr. Parker, Mr. Parker!" Vivian shouted, running toward him with a phone in her hands. "The security cameras." Sadie disappeared from her room. She left a note saying she doesn't want to destroy anyone else, that she'll find the answers about her mother on her own. Dr. Colton ran through the hallways, coordinating the searches while trying to keep Amelia calm, a near impossible task after she saw the security camera footage. Oh my God, she's not alone in the images. Look, someone was waiting for her, someone she seems to recognize. The cameras show Sadie following a familiar figure through the corridors, but I can't identify. Wait, that posture, that gait. It can't be. Parker stared at the pixelated security camera images, his world crumbling even faster. Sadie walked determinedly, following a figure moving with familiarity through the hospital hallways, someone who clearly knew the routines, the cameras, the blind spots. How did we not see it before? Someone was watching, waiting for the right moment. Someone who knows Sadie, who knows about Amelia, who understands the meaning of the star. But who? Who else survived that terrible night 20 years ago? Amelia struggled in her wheelchair, her fingers forming signs so quickly not even Vivian could keep up. Her eyes were fixed on the last image of Sadie disappearing down a corridor, the girl making the butterfly sign one last time before vanishing from sight. She's not running away. She's being led. I recognize those movements, that way of hiding from the cameras. That's how they taught us to escape the orphanage, the same patterns, the same paths. Someone who was there is guiding my granddaughter away from me. Not again, please, I can't lose her too. Parker was frantically organizing the searches, distributing the few photos they had of Sadie to the hospital security, when his phone rang one last time. It was his accountant, confirming that the company was officially out of his control. The final price for trying to save a life. But while everyone rushed through the hallways calling for Sadie, a single security screen showed the devastating truth. The girl was voluntarily following her mysterious companion, making the same signs that Amelia had taught so long ago, as if she had finally found someone who understood her secret language perfectly. The rain began to fall over Texas as Parker sped his car through the poor neighborhoods, his eyes frantically scanning every alley, every corner. In the passenger seat, Amelia refused to use the oxygen mask Dr. Colton had insisted on, her fingers moving restlessly, forming the butterfly sign as a silent prayer. In the back seat, Vivian held the phone with the last images from the security cameras, trying to identify any clue as to which path Sadie had taken. My granddaughter is somewhere in this labyrinth of streets, following someone who knows our signs, our history. How could I have been so blind? How did I not realize that someone was watching, waiting for the right moment to take her? I can't fail her like I failed her mother. I can't lose another child to the silence. Dr. Colton had tried to prevent Amelia from leaving the hospital, his medical arguments sounding increasingly desperate as she rose from the wheelchair with fierce determination. Her signs were clear and precise, even with trembling hands. She would not lie in a bed while her granddaughter was lost in the city. Parker supported her, knowing it was useless to argue. "Doctor, you don't understand. This baby I'm carrying and Sadie share the same blood, the same genetic condition that's killing her heart. If I lose one more child to that place, to those people, there won't be a hospital in the world capable of keeping me alive. I need to find her, even if it's the last thing I do." Vivian let out a muffled exclamation as she recognized a familiar construction in the images from a street camera, an abandoned building with a crooked cross on top, its walls stained by time and neglect. Her fingers touched the screen tremulingly, memories from 20 years ago flooding her mind. "Parker, Amelia, I recognize this place. It's the old orphanage. The last images show Sadie heading in that direction. My God, how did I not realize it before? We're in the same neighborhood where it all began, where Amelia lost her voice, where her daughter disappeared, where all those secrets were buried." Parker slammed on the brakes in front of a pawn shop, his hands trembling as he removed the only valuable item he still possessed, the gold watch his father had given him, the last reminder of a time when his name meant power and wealth. The shop owner could hardly believe the piece he held in his hands, his eyes shining with the possibility of easy profit. "This watch is the last thing I have of my father, the only tangible memory of a lifetime of achievements. But what use is a relic of the past when the present is crumbling? I need this money to continue the search, to save the future that Sadie represents." An elderly woman selling flowers on the corner frantically signaled their car as they passed, her gestures immediately catching Amelia's attention. Her fingers formed the same signs they knew so well, and her words were urgent. Sadie had passed by there, asking about a girl who lived in the orphanage a long time ago, her supposed sister. "The little one was determined, Mum." She kept making these hand signs, asking about a girl who lived in the orphanage years ago. She said she needed to find her sister, that it was a matter of life and death. "But that place only holds death, ma'am. Nothing good survived those walls." Amelia turned pale as she turned a specific corner, her fingers freezing in the air as her eyes fixed on a narrow alley between two dilapidated buildings. Parker noticed the immediate change in his wife, the terror that took over her face as she recognized that place. "This is where they brought us, Parker. Through this alley, away from people's eyes. I can still hear the screams. I can still smell the cigarette smoke and fear. This is where I lost my voice. This is where they took my daughter from me. And now my granddaughter is reliving the same nightmare." The rain thickened, turning the narrow streets into small rivers, further complicating the search. Vivian tried to interpret Amelia's increasingly erratic signs, while Parker struggled to keep the car moving on the flooded streets. The windshield wipers could barely keep up with the falling water, making it almost impossible to see beyond a few meters. "This storm is no coincidence, Parker. The sky is crying as it cried that night, as if nature itself wants to prevent us from reaching her. But I won't stop, I can't stop." Sadie is retracing her mother's steps, seeking answers in a place that only offers more questions. Amelia began to tremble violently as they passed through the rusted gates of the old orphanage. Her hands moved frantically, forming signs that Vivian could barely keep up with, terrible memories flashing back in devastating waves. Parker had to stop the car, his wife's body convulsing with the weight of her recollections. "The basement windows, Parker. That's where they kept us when they caught us trying to escape. I can see the girls' faces pressed against the bars. I can hear their silent cries. Sadie is in there somewhere, searching for a sister she never knew, a story written in blood and silence." A group of children playing under an awning caught Vivian's attention. They were pointing at the abandoned building, their voices mixing with the sound of the rain as they told of a girl who had passed by earlier, making strange hand signs. The girl looked sick, ma'am. She kept holding her chest as if she couldn't breathe properly, but she kept walking, following someone who seemed to know the way very well. She showed an old photo, asking about another girl who looked like her. She said it was her sister, that she needed to find her before it was too late. Parker parked the car near the back of the orphanage, where the charred walls still told the story of the fire that had changed so many lives. Amelia refused to stay in the car, even with the torrential rain battering her already weakened body. Her signs were desperate as she pointed to a side entrance half hidden by vegetation. "This is where we would come in when we needed to escape, Parker. I know every inch of this place, every hiding spot, every secret passage. It was through this door that I tried to flee with my daughter that night. The night I lost everything, except the hope that one day the truth would come to light." The storm worsened by the minute, turning the grounds around the orphanage into a treacherous, muddy mess. Vivian held Amelia firmly as they advanced, their feet sinking into the mud as they searched for any sign of Sadie. Lightning illuminated the building's broken windows, casting dancing shadows on the stained walls. "We shouldn't be here, Parker. This place is cursed by the tears of so many lost children. But Sadie is here somewhere, following the footsteps of a ghost that knows our story better than we would like. A muffled scream from Vivian cut through the noise of the rain. There, caught on a twisted branch near the basement entrance, was Sadie's blue scarf. Amelia broke free from the arms trying to hold her back, running towards the piece of clothing in desperation. Her fingers trembled as she touched the soaked fabric, immediately recognizing the dark stains that were not just from the rain. Blood. There's blood on her scarf, Parker. My God, it's happening again. I'm losing another child to this cursed place. I can taste the blood in my own throat, just like that night. The night my voice was silenced forever. Parker held the blood-stained scarf with trembling hands, his eyes fixed on the basement windows that seemed to stare back at him with a somber promise. The rain fell even harder, as if trying to wash away the sins of 20 years of silence. At the back of his mind, a terrible truth was starting to take shape. It was no coincidence that Sadie had been brought to this very place. Whoever brought her here knows every secret, every story, every drop of blood shed within these walls. We are about to uncover a truth that has been buried for 2 decades, a truth that cost Amelia her voice and her daughter's life. Vivian supported Amelia, who had started making increasingly desperate signs, her fingers forming words that no one wanted to read. The governess translated with a choked voice as the lightning continued to illuminate the sinister facade of the orphanage. She says she can feel it, Parker. She can feel that Sadie is near, that she is alive but suffering. The same kind of suffering she felt that night, the same fear that made her create sign language. Our girl is reliving a story that should never have been repeated. The wind howled through the broken windows of the orphanage, carrying echoes of long-silenced screams. Parker held Amelia, who was trembling violently, not just from the cold of the rain, but from the memories that this place awakened. The blood-stained scarf in his hands seemed to weigh a ton, every drop of blood a promise that the past had not finished with them. We will find her, Amelia. I won't let this place take another life from our family. Sadie is not just your granddaughter. She is the living proof that some bonds are stronger than silence, deeper than fear. And this time we'll do it differently. In the main room of Parker's mansion, the television displayed the announcement that would change everything. The serious faces of his relatives took turns on the screen as they made the official statement. The Montero family was publicly distancing themselves from him. Amelia watched from the armchair, her hands gently over her belly as the words cut through the air. It is with deep regret that we announce our distancing from Parker Montero's recent decisions. We cannot support someone who has abandoned our business traditions for personal reasons. Parker turned off the television gently, a sad smile on his lips. They would never understand that family goes far beyond last names on letterheads and bank accounts. Family is about love, about difficult choices, about being there when they need you the most. Amelia felt a sudden wave of discomfort, her hands moving nervously in the air. Vivian rushed to help her, recognizing the worrying signs. The stress of the latest discoveries was affecting her pregnancy. Her fingers formed words of concern that made Vivian gently squeeze her hand. I need to stay strong. I need to endure. This baby and Sadie need me more than ever. I cannot rest until I reunite my family again, until I fix the mistakes of the past. Vivian helped Amelia get more comfortable when she finally decided to share the truth she had been keeping for so long. Her voice was soft, laden with old memories, as she revealed how Amelia had lost her voice. She was a determined young social worker keen to make a difference. She created a special sign language to communicate with the children, to give a voice to those who had none. When they found out, they tried to silence her. But even without a voice, her hands kept telling stories of hope. Parker was in his office analyzing Sadie's scarf when he received the call from the lab. His eyes widened at the unexpected finding. The stains on the fabric were not what they seemed. Dr. Colton, the results show there is no reason for panic. These stains are just red ink, probably from somewhere in the abandoned orphanage. Sadie is okay somewhere, leaving clues for us. Dr. Colton arrived at the mansion carrying an old file, his face serious but gentle as he shared the discovery about Sadie's sister. The documents revealed a touching story of love and sacrifice. Her sister was at the orphanage during the fire. She was known for helping other children, for being a light in difficult times. She managed to save several people that night, but most importantly, she left a diary telling the whole truth. Amelia began signing animatedly upon seeing the documents, her eyes shining with recognition. Vivian translated with emotion the voice, revealing a story that connected all the pieces. Your daughter, Sadie's mother, had a very special friend at the orphanage. They were like sisters, sharing dreams and hopes. They made a promise to always protect each other, to keep alive the sign language Amelia had created. Dr. Colton gently interrupted the conversation, noting that Amelia needed to rest. His medical instruments indicated that she needed to calm down, that all that emotion wasn't doing the baby any good. We need to take care of you now, Amelia. All these discoveries are important, but your health and the baby's come first. Parker held Amelia's hand tenderly as she continued trying to convey something crucial through her signs. Vivian translated with tears of emotion in her eyes. She's saying there's more to the story, Parker. Something about your daughter and her friend. Something that would change everything if we knew back then. At that moment, Dr. Colton noticed a change in Amelia's heart rate. It was nothing serious, but they needed to act with caution. I'm going to need to take her to the hospital for some preventive tests. Nothing serious, just precaution. We have to make sure you and the baby are okay for when Sadie comes back. It was then that Amelia felt a stronger contraction, her eyes widening with concern. Dr. Colton acted quickly, checking her vital signs while Vivian called an ambulance. Parker held her hand firmly, conveying strength and love. The heart monitor showed changes that needed immediate medical attention. It wasn't a major emergency, but they needed to act fast to ensure Amelia and the baby's well-being. In the last moment before being taken to the hospital, Amelia made the butterfly sign, a gesture of hope and love they all knew so well. It was a silent promise that everything would be okay, that the family would be reunited soon. The lights of the surgical center flashed in sequence as Dr. Colton's team prepared Amelia for an emergency C-section. The monitors emitted soft but constant alert signals indicating the baby was in distress. Amelia, even sedated, continued making small hand gestures, as if trying to tell a story that couldn't wait. We need to act now, Dr. Colton spoke with controlled urgency, his eyes alternating between the monitors and his team. The baby is showing the same signs of distress we saw in the records of Amelia's first pregnancy. It's as if the story is repeating itself, but this time we can change the ending. Parker was standing in the corridor of the surgical center when his phone vibrated. The police had found a new clue about Sadie's whereabouts. His hands were shaking as he held the device, his heart torn between two directions. Vivian gently held his arm, understanding his anguish without needing words. How can I choose, Vivian? Amelia is here, needing me, our baby fighting to survive. But Sadie is also our family, also needs help. Every minute that passes could be crucial to finding her, but I can't abandon Amelia at this delicate moment. Dr. Colton was analyzing the results of the latest tests when something caught his attention. Amelia's blood type was extremely rare, the same that appeared in Sadie's mother's medical records that Vivian had found. The doctor called his team, showing the discovery with growing admiration. This is more than a coincidence. This blood type occurs in far less than 1% of the population. Amelia wasn't just a social worker trying to help. She and Sadie's mother shared the same rare blood, the same genetic condition. That's why she felt so connected to that young woman. Vivian frantically rummaged through her bag, looking for the documents she had kept from the old orphanage. Among the yellowed pages, she found something that made her heart stop. An adoption process initiated by Amelia trying to obtain legal guardianship of Sadie's mother. The date on the document was just 1 week before the fire. Parker, look at this. Amelia wasn't just trying to protect that girl, she was trying to give her a home, a family. She knew, somehow she knew there was a deeper connection between them. The monitors began to show worrying signs. The baby was responding less and less to the stimuli, his heartbeats becoming irregular. Dr. Colton was working with surgical precision, his hands moving with years of experience, as he tried to save 2 lives at once. The pattern is identical to what we see in Sadie's mother's pregnancy records. This genetic condition is affecting the baby's heart development, just as it affected Sadie. We need to act fast, but with extreme care. Parker received a call from the bank. His last financial reserves had been consumed by the hospital costs. The businessman looked out the hospital window, seeing his last car being towed away, the collateral he had given to cover the medical expenses. All the money in the world means nothing if I can't protect my family. Amelia is fighting for her life in an operating room. Sadie is lost somewhere in the city, and this baby needs every penny I can still muster. An elderly nurse stopped abruptly as she passed by the operating room, her eyes widening as she recognized Amelia on the operating table. She approached Vivian with hesitant steps, her voice trembling with the weight of memories. I was there that night 20 years ago, when Amelia arrived at the hospital voiceless, carrying a pregnant girl in her arms. I never forgot her eyes, even without being able to speak. They screamed a story no one was ready to hear. Dr. Colton worked tirelessly, his hands moving with precision as he performed the cesarean section. Amelia, even under sedation, seemed restless, her fingers occasionally forming the sign of the butterfly. This surgery is different from any I've ever performed. We're not just bringing a new life into the world, we're trying to break a 2-decade cycle. This baby carries the same rare blood, the same genetic condition that connects 3 generations of strong women. Vivian held the adoption attempt documents against her chest, silent tears streaming down her face as she watched the surgery through the glass. Parker was by her side, torn between staying and looking for Sadie, when his phone vibrated with another police update. Amelia knew from the beginning. She tried to adopt that girl because she recognized something familiar in her. The same rare blood, the same heart condition. It wasn't coincidence, it was destiny, trying to reunite a family that was separated by the cruelty of silence. Suddenly, all the monitors began beeping alerts simultaneously. Amelia's vitals were dangerously oscillating while Dr. Colton tried to stabilize her. The baby had finally been delivered, but Amelia wasn't responding as she should. The machines showed increasingly worrying signs. Her organs were starting to fail one after the other, as if her body was finally succumbing to the weight of 20 years of secrets and silent pain. Vivian carefully walked among the debris of the old orphanage, her flashlight illuminating decades of secrets buried under dust and abandonment. The light drizzle that started to fall didn't stop her from examining every corner, every half-burned piece of paper she found. Her experienced eyes caught something among the rubble, a small metal box, partially melted by the fire from so long ago. Inside she found a piece of paper with Sadie's childish handwriting. I'm following Mum's footsteps, trying to find the truth that Grandma Amelia hid for so long. I know it's dangerous, but I need to know why she never came looking for us. Vivian held the note with trembling hands. My God, she's not running away, Aka. She's looking for answers. Sadie understood more than we thought. She's following the clues her mother left so long ago. Parker received his accountant's last call as he watched the town square from the borrowed car's window. His last vehicle had been repossessed that morning. The accountant's words were like stabs. Frozen accounts, cancelled cards, mortgaged properties. 20 years of empire reduced to nothing in a matter of weeks. It's strange, you know? I spent my whole life building a fortune, thinking money was synonymous with power, with security. Now I'm completely bankrupt, but I've never felt so rich. Rich with purpose, love, real family. At the hospital, Dr. Colton monitored Amelia's vitals during the delicate surgery when a nurse brought more documents found in the archives. Among them, a surprising discovery: Amelia's full record as a social worker at the orphanage, including her detailed notes on every child she tried to help. The doctor read the pages with growing admiration. She wasn't just an employee. She was an infiltrator, trying to expose the abuses, trying to save those children even knowing the risks. Amelia was pregnant when she started working there, using her own experience as motivation to change the system. The rain began to thicken as a group of children took shelter in the square, animatedly pointing at the abandoned orphanage building. Through the water curtain, they had seen Sadie sneaking in through the old back door, following a path she seemed to know well. Vivian listened to their accounts with a heavy heart. She seemed to know exactly where she was going, ma'am, making hand signs like she was talking to someone we couldn't see. And she had an old photo in her hands, a photo she kept staring at the whole time. Vivian frantically searched through the debris of an old administrative office when she found something that made her heart stop, a photo album partially preserved from the fire. On the cover, in faded letters, it read, "Butterfly Project Family Reunification." Inside, photos of young Amelia, still with her voice, embracing a teenage girl who was Sadie's mirror image. "Parker, come see this." Amelia wasn't just trying to help Sadie's mum. She was documenting everything, creating proof of the connection between them. Look at the dates on the photos. They're exactly 9 months before the fire. Dr. Colton took a quick break from the surgery when he noticed something peculiar in the documents. A series of reports written by Amelia, detailing her suspicions about irregular adoptions at the orphanage. The most intriguing was a list of children who shared a rare blood condition. This can't be a coincidence. Amelia was investigating a pattern, girls with the same rare blood type being separated from their families. She wasn't just trying to save those children. She was trying to reconnect them with their biological mothers. The storm intensified over the city, turning the streets into rivers and making the searches even more difficult. Parker drove the borrowed car with difficulty, his eyes alert for any movement inside the abandoned building. Vivian, in the passenger seat, held the newly discovered photos like a treasure. "These photos tell a story Amelia could never tell us with words, Parker. Look how she smiles next to Sadie's mom. It's the same smile, the same eyes. How did we not see it before? The resemblance is striking." A lightning bolt illuminated the inside of the abandoned building, revealing Sadie standing in the middle of an old room. In her hands, she held one of the photos Vivian had found in the album, the image of young Amelia embracing her mother. Her little fingers traced the outlines of the faces in the photograph as silent tears rolled down her cheeks. "I understand now why Mom cried every time she taught me the signs. She wasn't just teaching me a language, she was connecting me to my true story. Every gesture, every hand movement was a bridge to Grandma Amelia." A particularly loud thunderclap shook the broken windows of the orphanage as Vivian and Parker finally reached the building. The rain now fell in dense curtains, turning the place into an even darker setting. Vivian clutched the photo album to her chest, protecting it from the water as they advanced through the dark corridors. "Parker, we need to find her soon. Amelia is fighting for her life at the hospital, and Sadie is here alone, looking for answers in a place full of painful memories. If anything happens to her..." Suddenly, a shrill scream cut through the noise of the storm. It was Sadie. Parker and Vivian ran towards the sound, their flashlights cutting through the darkness of the abandoned building. When they reached the old administrative room, they found Sadie frozen, her eyes fixed on a point in the shadows. There, partially illuminated by the lightning, a familiar figure emerged from the darkness, making the same signs that Amelia had created years ago. Sadie dropped the photo from her trembling hands, her scream of surprise echoing through the walls of the abandoned orphanage. Parker advanced through the dark corridors of the abandoned orphanage, guided by the flashes of his flashlight dancing on the peeled walls. The sound of the storm made it difficult to hear anything, but his instincts guided him to a room at the end of the hallway. There he found Sadie, huddled in a corner, her small body shaking with a high fever. Her hands moved weakly, trying to form the signs Amelia had taught her. "Mr. Parker, I knew you would come looking for me, but I need you to understand, I couldn't wait any longer. Every day that passes is one more secret buried, one less chance to find out why Mum never told Grandma Amelia about me. The fever doesn't matter now. Some truths are more important than our own health." With trembling hands, Sadie took an old notebook from her tattered backpack, its pages yellowed by time but preserved with evident care. It was her mother's diary, found hidden between the walls of the orphanage. Her eyes shone with fever as she explained her discovery. "Mom wrote everything here, Mr. Parker. How she met Grandma Amelia when she was a social worker, how she helped her escape from the orphanage, how they planned to run away together. But something went wrong that night, something that changed everything. I needed to find the evidence that Mom hid here, the evidence that explains why she never came back." A deafening roar shook the entire building. The storm was weakening the already compromised structures of time and abandonment. Pieces of the ceiling began to fall as Parker tried to convince Sadie to leave. The girl, however, dragged herself to a loose panel on the wall, her feverish hands struggling to reach something hidden in the shadows. "We can't go yet. The answer is here. Mom told me in dreams. She showed me where to look. Please, Mr. Parker, I need to know why she chose to leave me with other people instead of taking me to Grandma Amelia. Sadie finally managed to reach a small metal box, its surface marked by time, but still intact. Inside, carefully preserved documents told a story that Parker could never have imagined. The girl spread the papers on the floor as more pieces of the ceiling collapsed around them. Look, Mr. Parker, they're all here. The genetic tests Mom secretly did, the letters she never managed to deliver to Grandma Amelia, the proof that we were all part of the same family. Mom didn't abandon Grandma Amelia. She was trying to protect her. Parker read the documents with growing dismay as he held the increasingly feverish and shivering Sadie. The words on the papers revealed a truth that changed everything. Amelia was not just the social worker who tried to help a pregnant teenager. The genetic test proved that she was Sadie's mother's biological mother, separated from her at birth by the very orphanage. My God, Sadie, your mother wasn't just running away from the orphanage, she was trying to get back to Amelia. She had uncovered the truth about her birth and was gathering evidence when the fire happened. The orphanage wasn't just a place for illegal adoptions, it was a front for separating mothers and daughters. A deafening noise indicated the building's structure was rapidly giving way. Parker tried to carry Sadie to the exit, but discovered in horror that the hallway was completely blocked by fallen debris. The rain now freely poured in through cracks in the ceiling, drenching the precious documents Sadie tried to protect. Mr. Parker, promise you'll deliver this to Grandma Amelia if I don't make it. She needs to know that Mom searched for her, that she uncovered the truth, that she tried to reunite us. Promise you'll tell her that every gesture, every sign I learned was a way to keep the connection to our real family alive. Sadie suddenly clutched at her chest, her face draining of color as her knees buckled. Parker caught her in his arms, recognizing the signs of another heart attack. The girl's heart, already weakened by the same genetic condition that afflicted Amelia, wasn't withstanding the stress and high fever. Please, not now. Not when we've finally uncovered the whole truth. Grandma Amelia needs to know that Mom never abandoned her, that she died trying to bring us together. Mr. Parker, don't let this story end in silence again. A flash of lightning lit up the entire room, revealing cracks spreading across the floor like spiderwebs. Parker held Sadie protectively, the precious documents tucked inside his jacket as he tried to find an escape route. The girl, even in the midst of her crisis, continued making the butterfly sign with trembling fingers. It's the same sign Mom would make when she was scared, Mr. Parker. She said she learned it from Grandma Amelia. It was our secret code to say, no matter what happens, love always finds a way back home. The sound of cracking wood and giving concrete filled the air as the floor began sinking beneath their feet. Parker held Sadie tightly, shielding both the girl and the documents that proved her true family story. In her last moments of consciousness, Sadie made one final sign. Not the butterfly, but a new one she had created herself. It's the sign for hope, Mr. Parker. Because even if the ground crumbles beneath our feet, even if it seems like all is lost, our family is finally whole. Grandma Amelia will know she was always loved, that she was never forgotten. And then, with a deafening crash, the floor gave way completely, taking Parker and Sadie tumbling into the darkness below. In the blackness of the debris, Parker cradled Sadie protectively in his arms, using his own body to shield her from the still falling rubble. The broken flashlight cast a feeble beam, revealing the cramped space they had fallen into, an old basement room in the orphanage's sublevels. The air was growing increasingly stale, and Sadie's breathing became more labored. We need to keep you warm, little one. Your Grandma Amelia is fighting at the hospital to bring your aunt or uncle into the world, and you need to be there to meet them. I'm not letting this story end like this, not when we've finally found all the answers. The distant sounds of rescue teams were muffled by the rain and rubble that separated them. Parker could hear the voices and machinery, but knew they were too far away. The space they were trapped in was like a time capsule. On the walls, old scratch marks told silent stories of other children who had been kept there. Sadie touched the marks with trembling fingers. Mom told me about this place in her letters. It's where they kept the girls who learned the truth. She was here when she heard Grandma Amelia's screams that night, when they took her voice away forever. Sadie struggled to keep her eyes open, her breathing growing shallower in the thinning air. Still, she kept recounting her story, as if afraid the truths would die with her. Mom found it all in the orphanage files. They were systematically separating mothers and daughters, especially ones with our rare blood type. When she gathered all the evidence and tried to expose them, the fire started. But it wasn't an accident. She managed to save the documents, but couldn't save herself. Parker held Sadie closer as he realized the rainwater was starting to seep in through the basement floor. His watch, its face now cracked, showed the same fateful date from 20 years ago, the day Amelia lost her voice, the day her daughter disappeared trying to reveal the truth. It's like a terrible cycle coming full circle. On the same day Amelia was silenced for trying to protect the children, her own daughter died trying to uncover the truth. And now Sadie, her granddaughter, is here in that same place, fighting with the same frail heart her mother had. At the hospital, Amelia jolted awake from the anesthesia, her fingers forming frantic signs no one could understand. Dr. Colton tried to calm her while monitoring the newborn baby's struggling vital signs. Vivian translated Amelia's desperate gestures through teary eyes. "She's saying she can feel it, Doctor. She can feel that Sadie is in danger, in the same place where she lost everything. Amelia wants to go there, wants to save her granddaughter like she couldn't save her daughter." The water was rising rapidly in the basement, and the air was becoming thinner and thinner. Sadie began coughing violently, her lips turning a bluish hue that terrified Parker. The girl was still trying to speak, determined to share every bit of the truth she had discovered. "Mr. Parker, I need you to promise me. Promise you'll tell Grandma Amelia that Mum died trying to bring us together. She found out she was her daughter when she found the genetic tests in the files. She was coming back to tell everything when the fire started." Suddenly, Sadie went limp in his arms, her eyes closing as her breathing became almost imperceptible. The rescue teams finally managed to create an access, descending with emergency equipment. Parker and Sadie were pulled from the rubble in critical condition, both immediately taken to the same hospital where Amelia had just given birth. Dr. Colton now found himself in an impossible situation, 3 lives from the same family needing intensive care simultaneously. It's the same genetic condition affecting them all. The baby Sadie, and now we've discovered through the rescued documents that Sadie's mother had the same heart problem. It's as if the past is exacting its price all at once. Vivian organized the soaked documents Parker had protected, her hands trembling as she read the irrefutable evidence. The genetic tests, the undelivered letters, the orphanage records. Everything confirmed that Sadie's mother was indeed Amelia's daughter, separated from her at birth. She never abandoned her daughter, Parker. The orphanage took her away, as they did with all the girls who had that rare blood type. It was a terrible family separation scheme, and Amelia, unaware, was investigating her own case when she lost her voice. Dr. Colton rushed between the operating rooms, trying to coordinate the emergency treatment for Sadie and the baby, while Parker remained in a coma. Amelia watched it all through the intensive care unit's glass, her fingers making the butterfly sign without stopping. The doctors had offered a risky surgery that could restore her voice, but the procedure would have to be immediate. "It's your choice, Amelia," Vivian translated the doctor's words. "We can try to recover your voice now, but the risk is high, and we need your authorization for the experimental procedure on Sadie. Time is running out for all of them." Sadie's heart monitor began to sound alarms at the exact moment Amelia was being prepped for her own surgery. The girl was going into cardiac arrest, while in the nursery, the baby was also showing signs of distress. Dr. Colton and his team worked frenetically to save both children, aware of the terrible irony, 3 generations of the same family, all fighting for their lives at the same time. It was at that moment that Amelia, still on the gurney headed into surgery, felt something different in her throat. For the first time in 20 years, a sound began to form in her damaged vocal cords, a silent scream that carried 2 decades of pain and secrets. And in that exact instant, Sadie's heart stopped. The soft morning light filtered through the hospital room windows, where Amelia rested after the longest night of her life. Dr. Colton entered, holding test results and a cautious smile on his face. With gentle gestures, he explained that a new surgical technique could repair her damaged vocal cords. Vivian translated as Amelia absorbed the news, her fingers trembling as she formed the signs. After 20 years of silence, the possibility of speaking again, of being able to say "I love you" to my granddaughter, of being able to sing to my baby. "Dr. Colton, Even if the chance is small, I have to try. I need to use my voice to tell our story. Dr. Colton spread the documents recovered from the orphanage across the hospital tray. Adoption records, medical files, and a truth that could no longer be denied. Amelia, at just 16 years old, had given birth to a daughter who was immediately taken from her. That child grew up to become Sadie's mother, completing a circle fate had set in motion 2 decades earlier. With trembling fingers, Amelia touched the old photographs, recognizing in each one the features she now saw in her granddaughter. They told me she didn't survive the birth, that it was better if I moved on with my life. But my heart never believed it. That's why I created the sign language, why I tried to help the other girls at the orphanage. I was looking for my daughter in each of them. Sadie lay in the next bed over, slowly recovering from her latest surgery, her tiny fingers occasionally moving to form the signs her mother had taught her, the same ones Amelia had created so long ago. The genetic confirmation was a mere formality, the bond between grandmother and granddaughter, written in every gesture, every look they shared. Grandma Amelia, now I understand why Mum would cry every time she taught me the signs. She knew. She always knew they were more than just motions. It was a mother's love traveling through time, finding its way back home. Parker opened his eyes slowly, emerging from days of coma into a world that was completely different. His financial empire had crumbled, his accounts emptied, his wealthy family had publicly disowned him. But surrounding him in wheelchairs sat his real family, Amelia, Sadie, and a tiny bundle cradled in Vivian's arms. I lost everything I built over 20 years of work, but I gained something money could never buy. Look at us, Amelia. Who would have thought we'd find our real fortune in the rubble of an abandoned orphanage? Vivian rocked the newborn baby girl, a perfectly healthy child, who by some miracle of genetics did not carry the heart condition that afflicted her family. Sadie watched her new aunt in fascination, hardly able to believe she now had someone her own age to share the special language of signs with. It's strange to think my aunt is younger than me, but it's also perfect. We'll grow up together, Grandma Amelia. She'll learn our special language. She'll know our story from the very start. We'll never have to hide again. At last, Vivian revealed her own secret, silent tears streaming down her face as she confessed. She had always known Amelia was Sadie's mother's mother, had recognized the signs from day one, had kept the evidence all those years, waiting for the right moment for the truth to emerge. I couldn't tell you before, Amelia. The trauma was too fresh, the pain too deep. I had to wait until your heart was ready to receive that much love back. Sadie was the angel fate sent to heal 2 decades of silence. Dr. Colton rushed into the room, his eyes shining with astonishing news. Sadie's latest test results showed something inexplicable. Her heart, once so fragile, was getting stronger by the day. It was as if love and truth were the best medicine she could receive. It's a medical miracle, I have no other explanation. Her heart is regenerating in a way I've never seen before. Perhaps some bonds are just too strong for science to explain. Amelia was being prepped for her surgery when Sadie wheeled herself in, determined to be there when her grandmother tried to speak for the first time in 20 years. The two exchanged looks filled with unspoken promises, their hands dancing through the air in a conversation only they understood. I'll be waiting for you, Grandma. And when you wake up, we'll have all the time in the world to talk with words, with signs, with our hearts. Some stories need to be told in every way possible. Amelia's surgery lasted for hours, every minute an eternity for the family waiting. Parker held Sadie, who wouldn't take her eyes off the operating room door, while Vivian rocked the baby that now connected 3 generations in a completely unexpected way. It's funny how life works, isn't it? Amelia lost her voice trying to protect other girls, never knowing one of them was her own daughter. And now that we've finally uncovered the whole truth, she has a chance to get her voice back and tell our story. Dr. Colton performed the surgery with millimetric precision, each movement calculated to repair 2 decades of damage. Amelia's vocal cords, silenced for so long, slowly began to show signs of life. In the recovery room, the entire family awaited the moment when she would awake, when they would know if the procedure had worked. Even if she doesn't fully regain her voice, we have our own language, Sadie signed to Parker. The signs she created kept us connected through time, through silence. Parker watched his new family with teary eyes, his wife fighting to recover her voice, his step-granddaughter who turned out to be Amelia's biological granddaughter, and now a baby completing the circle in such a perfect way. He had no more money, no more status, but for the first time in his life he felt truly rich. Who needs a financial empire when you have an empire of love? Look at us, Amelia. We are the living proof that some fortunes cannot be measured in money. Vivian prepared the room for Amelia's return from surgery, placing old photos alongside new ones, images telling a story of loss, search, and reunion. Sadie helped, her fingers tracing the faces in the photographs, recognizing in each of them pieces of her own story. Vivian always knew, didn't she? She kept every clue, every evidence, waiting for the moment when we would all be ready for the truth. Sometimes love is like that, patient, silent, waiting for the right moment to blossom. Amelia was brought back to the room, still under the effects of anesthesia, but already trying to form signs with her hands. Dr. Colton explained they would need to wait a few hours before attempting any sound, but her vitals were promising. Sadie snuggled up next to her grandmother, their hands moving in perfect synchrony. "Soon I will hear your voice, Grandma." But it doesn't matter the result. We already have our own music. Every gesture, every sign you created is a note in our particular symphony. The moment came when the sun was setting, painting the hospital room in golden hues. Amelia opened her eyes, finding her family gathered around her. With infinite care, she tried her first words in 20 years. The sound came out hoarse, frail, but perfectly clear. "My granddaughter, my Sadie." Her hands simultaneously formed the special signs she had created so long ago, uniting past and present in a moment of pure magic. Sadie, with tears of joy streaming down her face, made the sign of the freedom butterfly, no longer as a symbol of escape, but as a celebration of finally being home. Parker, having lost all his material fortune, smiled as he saw his true family finally complete. Amelia, now with voice and signs, continued her story. The butterfly always knew the way back home. We just needed to learn to fly together. Dr. Colton was making his final round of the night when he found the entire family gathered in the now decorated room with the photos that told their story. Amelia, with her still fragile but increasingly stronger voice, alternated between speaking and signing while telling Sadie stories about her mother. The baby slept peacefully in the crib beside her, her soft breathing a reminder of the miracle that had united 3 generations. Vivian organized the documents rescued from the orphanage into a special album, preserving every piece of that extraordinary story for future generations. "You are more than patience now," commented Dr. Colton, his voice choked with emotion. "You are the living proof that love finds its way, even through silence, even through time. This family was not formed by blood or paper, but by choices, by sacrifices, by a unique language that kept hope alive when all else seemed lost." Amelia settled into the hospital bed, now surrounded by her complete family. Parker holding her hand, Sadie nestled by her side, the baby sleeping peacefully, and Vivian preserving memories for them all. With her newly recovered voice, she began to softly sing an old lullaby, the same one she had kept in her heart for 20 years. Her hands still automatically made the signs as she sang, forever uniting the 2 forms of expression that now defined her family. "You know," she said, alternating between words and gestures, "some people spend their whole lives searching for a treasure, without realizing that true wealth lies in the stories we share, the scars that unite us, the silences we learn to turn into music." Our family is not defined by what we lost, but by what we found in each other. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next surprising narrative that is about to appear on your screen. We are immensely grateful to have you here with us. Now you can click on the links that are appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, filled with valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.